Good morning, guys. This is a pleasant Sunday morning, and I'm Pranjali Suresh Khairmode, neurophysiotherapist representing Insta Physical Therapy, welcomes you all to this yet another interesting topic is creating a new sensory experience for your kids with the special needs. And let's explore it out. So, how is this morning going, you guys? I'm pretty excited to share this new thoughts with you. So, yesterday I slept at 3 a.m. You know why? Because I was creating new sensory experiences for myself. One topic leads to another, and I found so much information. I was just, going through a lot of books, and I think I knew it, a background of it, and I'm always interested in kids in a special needs. And I explored it enough in my total number of years of experience as a neurophysiotherapist. So my background is, yes, I have done masters in neurophysiotherapy, and adult and pediatric neurology is my forte. Pediatric neurology has something enticing and exciting because kids can't tell what they want or they feel exactly. So we have to interpret all this information. So I'll start sharing slides with you. We will still go on with our presentation. Okay. So there are a lot of examples out there. Some celebrities have some special issues. So we can find out in the early age when somebody has some kids have developmental issues. So it can be anything. Start from like how they're expressing themselves or how they're learning, their capacity of learning, or do they need some extra time? Do they need some extra attention? So all those things matters a lot to understand their needs to grow better. So there are a lot of examples which we already know that, for example, I especially want to thank you all to have this, showing me interest in knowing that if not just your only kid has issues, but out there are a lot of people who are, common with such problems. So let's talk about this famous celebrity swimmer, Michael Phelps. So how there are a lot of books out there, and I want to thank to him to get to know that how swimming saved Michael Phelps. So he had a problem growing, and he had diagnosed with ADHD, attention deficit hyperactive disorder. It's kind of a learning disorder. So yeah, and then he had difficulty timing in focusing. So then he got his attention diverted to the swimming, and it's pretty well. He's now superstar. And then there are other celebrities also. And then there are some known faces to us who cannot show exactly what extra special needs they have and extra attention they had to provide to get to the next level of learning. So our brain is always under construction. When we are kids, we have our own way of thinking and pattern of thinking and what we like and what we dislike. Not all the time we are able to communicate with our parents or the guardians. So how we learn, whatever we learn is from, the environment and us interacting with each other. So the outside environment, whatever it provides you input like smell, auditory, vision, tactile, taste, vestibular, proprioceptive, and interoceptive. So let's talk about smell. Whatever we smell, these are the sensory processes. Whatever we can hear, whatever we see, whatever we touch and feel, and how we move in the surrounding, how we feel grounded to the gravity. So all those are the muscle interaction with the body. And interoceptive is like what extra senses we have, like what we actually, it's like what we think beyond that extra environment. So what happens in the brain, So there are sensory inputs from outside which comes to you. There is a brain processing that we take up all the information and we process it. It's like brain is like a computer and it processes how it wants. And then it has its own memory and cognition and all those internal difficult wiring system. And whatever we process is unique. Whatever our perception is unique. So that perception and the feeling matters a lot, how we are going to take it further and respond. So our response is also like inert, like sometimes it is already pre-registered. So whatever experience we had in the past, it can influence your response in the future. So lots of things happen. I like this sentence. I took it from some website, and I mean they were talking about a lot of neuronal connections. So it was a lot of in-depth neuronal or neurological knowledge, but put it into the simplest word that what we receive or detect, like, so there can be a lot of stimulus coming to us. There is the bird humming in the background and there is music going on and there is a lot of wind waves are coming and lot of dust coming to you, or we are moving in the fast car at the same time. So the whole experience of ours, we only pick up few information out of it to respond. So we do not we take everything, but we process only few of them and we filter out which is in the background and which is not essential to react. For example, if you're listening to the music when you're driving and suddenly, car comes in front of you, you have to stop. So you will respond accordingly. Your movement will happen not in the tune of the music, but you will filter out that. And that's why distracted driving is a crime, because obviously your response will be delayed if you're processing too many information. Similarly, with the kids, sometimes you find them totally distracted or not paying attention to one task. So you can understand that a lot of information is coming to them and they're not able to interact with all those together and select whichever is essential for them to respond. So it integrates, it modulates. Modulates means there is a fine tuning happening between a lot of things, what we receive. So we are at the same time, if I'm wearing clothes, I'm feeling the texture of the cloth. At the same time, if my hair is moving on my face, I'm feeling something on my face. I'm moving. So my body is sensing that, the movement. So currently, I'm talking to you and I'm giving you some information. So I have to think logically to respond to what's exactly what all things exactly going on in my body. And right now, just because maybe as much as my brain has become smart to process all those things, not everyone goes through the same spectrum. Some people needs to have some extra time, some extra attention, some extra sensory inputs to grow and learn better. So it discriminates also incoming sensory messages. So in a split second, in 1 second, it happens changes, and then you respond to typically one of that thing or two of that thing. So the end result is our brain sends outgoing messages and the person is acting. So when the legs and arms and eyes are moving, that is at the same time, the central nervous system or the brain is sending a lot of information to incorporate to the surrounding, how to respond well. Not all kids can do that. So what are the sensory processing disorder? There are a lot of chromosome abnormality. There are so many genetic mutations happening and genetic abnormalities happening, which can give a lot of misinformation to the brain development, and the brain development goes haywire, you can say, or it's malfunctional or it's extra functional, because some circuit in the brain can be very, very sharp and strong, and some circuits takes that longer time to redevelop, or to show their good response. So Down syndrome, then autistic spectrum disorder, then attention deficit hyperkinetic disorder, learning disorder, some of the cerebral palsy also. So cerebral palsy is mainly motor problem, like how we move and how we, when, it's difficulty of movement pattern. But because of the restricted movement, even the cerebral palsy can have a lot of sensory issues, that because their joint and muscles are not providing them great information to move in the surrounding. So what all things can happen in sensory processing disorder? So sensory processing means like kids are taking the information but not able to like modulate or integrate, or which one to select, which one to delete. So what can happen? This sensory modulation. So they cannot select which one is right information for them and which one is wrong. So if they're listening to the background music is going on and they're studying, it might just distract them totally. We cannot actually feel what they're feeling. I mean, you just only sympathize with them, but empathy is very, very difficult, because what they feel, their auditory signals, how much they are getting bombarded with, we may not be able to judge properly. But again, the professionals can help you to understand. Sensory discrimination disorder. That means they're mostly confused that which one to take and which one to leave. So they're loaded with a lot of information of what's going on in the surrounding, and they're just clueless or confused. Then there are like sensory-based motor disorders, as I spoken. Like there are some muscular dystrophy, or there are some cerebral palsy disorder where kids are not moving well, so they're not receiving well. Sensory over responsibility. That means too much of information or too much of loading of system happens to the kid. Then sensory under responsibility. That means they want more. Under responsibility means they do not know which one to select, or whatever they're receiving is very under the power. They need more to understand better. Sensory craving is they are always seeking. They're always moving too fast, or they're very aggressive, and they're bumping onto the things to seek more, to have that kind of experience more, to channelize their activity level. And postural disorder, that they don't want to move much, and dyspraxia is they don't know what to do or how to do things. So these are the basic sensory processing problems. Okay, brain remembers most what you feel. So this is very important. Like, so what brain receives a lot of information at once, but it can only remember the events which had made you feel something. So heartbreaks or accidents are remembered very well, because that, the accidents actually, when the accident happens, because it's so much of sensory overloading or so much of things happening around you, the brain can shut down and you do not remember the accident. But if it is like something pleasurable, if you're walking on the sand on the seashore and the nice breeze is going around you and some music is going on in your headphones, so all those experience, so you will always remember which is very either pleasant or painful to you, but with the lot of how you felt is going to be first thing you can remember, then the event. So it always happens backward. So whatever you can feel more, the brain responds better, or registers it better. So that's why I always talk about giving more of sensory experiences, or so much of sensory inputs to your kids, so that they can grasp it better or they will feel it better. So I'm able to learn, remember, feel, and get everything I want. And the psychology says that thank you for the limbic system. So limbic system is the part of the brain which is it's in the base of it's a subconscious brain. So that part of the brain deals with a lot of emotions, lot of preliminary thought processes, and it memorizes almost everything. So the memory and the perception is so much hand in hand that's why the action is so much dependent upon what you actually felt beforehand. So sometimes I just went across a great information yesterday that there is a hippocampus hijack. It's an interesting term, right? So what happens is like sometimes some sensory input comes to you, or something happens to you, or some event is happening in front of you. And before you can rationalize it from your frontal lobe, that means your front brain, which is more of reasoning and more of logical thinking, before the information goes to that area, you are responding with something like anger or rage or anything, because there is a bias happening. What is happening is like hijacking. The hippocampus, like the down brain, is taking over, and it's just asking you to respond quickly before even it goes to the logical thinking. So in kids, what happens is like the hijacking can happen, that whatever they have remembered earlier or they have felt. So sometimes the touch sensation, the normal touch sensation, if it wasn't pleasant, they're going to get averse with like it, or they are going to refrain from it. So what they're going to do is next time the same touch is coming to them, they're going to get away with that, and they're going to run away, because they remember that their brain remembers what they have felt beforehand. So feeling is more important. The creating that condition reflects that this sensation is going to give me a good sensation, that's going to make me feel better. Then they are integrating, or they're more receptive towards that sensation. So it happens when, and any kind of behavior or any kind of learning, you require a lot of sensation to receive in, to process it, and then, for example, let's talk about handwriting. If your kid has a bad handwriting, it's because you just see that the kid is not able to hold the pencil properly in a proper grip. But what is happening, it's not just issue of the strength, or he's not able to manipulate the pencil. It's all about how he feels about that pencil, what kind of sensation he's receiving, how much of force to apply to hold the pencil. If that is not registered in his brain because of some sensory lacking, that means he's not able to sense it, the joints are not providing, or the muscles are not providing the same kind of experience in the backside of the brain, and it's not able to get what am I supposed to do with that pencil, or how much of energy I'm going to require to use that pencil, and what kind of experience I'm going to create. Am I going to draw a circle? Am I going to draw a mountain? I don't know which direction to go in. So that processing will happen only when he is going to receive a good sensation from the pencil, and he's going to form a good grip around it. So it will happen only in the sequence. This has a lot of lag. Okay, in the broad category, I would like to put the sensory processing problems is hypersensitive and then hypersensitive. So hypersensitive means they seek more, or they want more to have the same kind of experience what considered to be normal kids have. So normal, there is no definition of normalcy. There is like a curve. It's like a bell curve, and then you fall into that 90% of percentile. So whatever is down below that is some kids will want more of those sensation receiving, like the smell and the vision and then the auditory signals, to understand better or to respond better. So they will start seeking more of those sensations. They will start, listening to loud music, or they are shouting, screaming, or they are moving a lot. They are hyperactive. They fall more. They have anger and rage issues. They're destructive because whatever breaking the things will give them a good sensation. It's kind of normal to them. And hypersensitive is like they're saying, no, too much is happening to me and too much is going on with my body. So they will try to isolate themselves, and they do not move much, and they're like kind of slow in processing, and they don't want too much of, surrounding going on. So I'm going to use this button because I think the laser button is not working very well. Okay. So let's talk about types of dyspraxia. Okay. Let me just adjust this. Dyspraxia is inability to do things by ideation, like how to do this. If I have to make coffee, what are the steps involved in making the coffee? What all ingredients I am going to require? If I'm missing out in that information, then it is like dyspraxia, or I don't know how to do things. So this is ideation, that how I don't know how to do it, and motor planning. So figuring out organized way of approaching the same concept. For example, if I'm like jumping, let's talk about kids, if the kid wants to jump, he doesn't know how much force he has to exert himself, or what kind of body movement he has to perform, or how much of, squat he has to do before the jumping. So all those small activities or small sequences is missing out in processing with the special kids. And then there is an execution problem. Like when they are doing it, it's not fine the way they do it. There are different signs we can understand is like to have a trouble focusing and concentrating, have, the temperament problems, or, sucking and drooling, moving around or achieving the milestones, standing, walking is not happening at the right age. Poor grasping, there is no midline activity. They can't hold things, or they can't catch or throw, or handling the toys are difficult for them. Some toys are like just completely no for them, and some of them are destructive, as I have already mentioned. Too much of bright light is not good. Like they are averse with too much of bright light, and small other details. So what we see as those symptoms are like just like an iceberg phenomena. That, for example, when you're seeing the kids are biting, so what we see is just this much, but what's going on underneath is it can be a teething issue. It's a simplest issue, but that they can be tired, they are hungry, they can say, I don't like it, and they're nervous about something. So, or they're frustrated or angry and they're trying to like suppress themselves down. So this is one small action of the kids, but there are a lot of emotions and a lot of underneath problems which we might miss out. So what's your role in providing those kind of proper sensory thing going on? So sensation means like what we are providing to them can be enhanced or can be fine-tuned or can be modified according to their needs. Okay, so your role is to understand or to recognize what do they need exactly, what I can provide them extra. So understand is like what's going on with them. First of all, just analyze that. What's going on? If my kid is behaving, so behavior is all about the response of the body. It is lots going on in the brain, in the processing system, to have that kind of execution of emotions. So you need to understand that if my child is angry or frustrated or destructive, there is lots going on behind it. Or my kid is not moving well. He's showing less interest in the toys and the games, and he's not able to go and play with other kids and do not have many friends. He's academically going poor. So we need to understand that what is their underneath problem, what they don't like, and they can't, their food preferences are different. So all those things, little by little, if you can jot it down, you can understand much more about your kids, their dislikes and their likes, and what fine tune you can have to channelize their energy into something productive. So adapt. You have to adapt according to their needs. If it's too much of noise going on in their in the background and they're not able to select what is required to respond, you can filter it out. Giving them headphones is a good choice. Good music can go on, and good selection of words can go on, and what they hear can be completely filtered as per their requirement. Then tinted glasses can be given to them so that they filter out extra sensory overloading of visual inputs or too much of lights going on and all those things. You can give them helmet if they're bumping all around and they're falling often, and the weighted jackets also to just calm them down. So yes, you can provide and facilitate support and groom and nurture their needs. So if somebody likes to move a lot, you just have to, so what you have to find a balance between too much of need and too less of their need. So you need to give them in an adequate portion or adequate amount so that they can have their stored energy flowing out nicely. If they are going to learn better when they're in hammock swing, yes, it is a good idea, but not too fast and not too slow. So you need to fine tune that with the learning process. So if they are reading and they're enjoying that hammock swing because their brain system is, channelized and they're connected well with the movement pattern. So if they're swinging too fast, they are actually seeking a lot of movement. So you need to play a facilitator role or a modulator role to have that kind of mid-range control. I like to mention this, there is no professional game, there is no conflict of interest in me mentioning about this thegeniusofplay.org. Thank you very much. Yesterday I was reading a lot about you guys, and they are compilation of OTs and professionals talking a lot about the play therapy and different toys. I think you can visit and just explore more, because I feel it was super interesting for me. That made me stay awake till 3 a.m. So there are types of learners. So you want your kids to grow better. You want your kids to be smart and grasp a lot of grasp a lot of knowledge. But what are their learning types? There are like 80% of people are audio visual learner, and only 10% of are audio learners. Researchers have already proven that. But in classroom, most of the time going on is like instructions given, or the reading part is happening, or auditory signals are happening. So we need to, not all kids can grasp that better. So you need to have that kind of synchrony going on between the visual and auditory signals at the same time. So what they're seeing and their hearing, they can learn better. Again, there are totally great number of population who learns by doing things. When they put their hands on it, they learn better. The practical stuff makes them, so that's kind of a feeling, that kind of sensation, like a Play-Doh, you're making something out of it, and that experience, the joy will make you remember how to make the things proper. So that kind of putting your fingers in the dough will channelize a lot of things in the big brain and the small brain and all those connections. So then your engram formation, the next time what you're going to learn is going to be always better, because whatever you have learned in the past will reinforce or enhance the learning abilities. Okay, some people are like, or some kids are like, whatever stresses them out, like exam, when the exam comes, they're like actually studying hard, and they're they're actually performing better. So what I found out is, yes, some kind of for example, marathon running, or 100-meter sprint. So when they're athlete, the storage of their energy just before they're going to perform for the game, that can make them remember things so well, because that the surge of hormones or surge of biochemicals in the body will make the engram formation or the neuronal connection happening very strongly. Okay, I like this slide very much. It all begins and ends with the neurons, from your sensory receptors to the nerves that control your muscles. Everything you feel, remember, or dream is written in these cells. So it's like an encoding. It's like a computer. It's a big, huge computer. It can restore, or it can reset a lot of information. So what's going on in the body, like whatever we are getting out of the surrounding is stored, but only selected as a first responders, as how you're processing as a thoughts. So as a treatment, or as a enhancing their learning experience, there is a concept of sensory room, so you can create in your own home that kind of a small room where you can provide a lot of different types of visual, auditory, smell, or kinesthetic. That means to touch, feel, and bounce around things like bean bags and beads, beaded, and then the small kind of a inflatable swimming pool. So something like that all the sensory experiences can be extra sensory information can be given to the kids, so that they can navigate through a surrounding, and they can be a better planner, and better at modulating their own sensory needs. So that's kind of a suggestion when if you have a sensory processing difficulty kids. The definition, oh, this is a very interesting term I found, is synesthesia. That means one type of the sensation received by the person can trigger off the different kind of sensation or perception in the same human. So in kids also, most of the time their pruning or the connection is still happening. They are not well developed. So at the age of 3 years, their balance and proprioception, that means how they feel about their body, where their nose is, where their arms are. So all the system gets channelizes at the age of 3. Before that, they're still, trying to juggle between the connections. And then after that, their behavior, their personality is all going to be dependent upon like what kind of sensation or what kind of environment they are in, so that what they're getting out of the surrounding. So internally lots going on, but the selection will happen with their past experiences. So synesthesia is registering that if I'm listening to something, some good music, I will start seeing some different colors. It's very, very interesting term. It in the beginning, it was considered as a neuronal difficulties, but now it is happening that in the science, they have started accepting that could be even considered to be in a percentile normal human beings that have some same kind of experiences. That so why am I talking about this is, so the brain is still developing, right? So you can facilitate, it's like a Play-Doh again. So you can reshape, you can reset, or you can give a different shapes to the Play-Doh. So it's in your hands. If you're a parent of special need kids, their demands and their needs, you can start understanding and you can provide whatever is required. With one sensory experience, they can have a different kind of sensory input and they can channelize. So just let's talk about this like sensory toys. If to understand where the body schema, that means where your nose is located, where your eyes are located, where your ears are located. Mr. Potato was a great toy, and it is still very famous that the kids can detach and attach their body parts and understand where their location is. There are like sensory, the tactile texture toys, which you can just fidget around or, make shapes out of it so that you can have a different kinds of beaded sensation and like textures. So yeah, so there is a color therapy. What I have come across is like, if your kid is having a special need, the different types of colors can, if you provide them to visualize or to have like, if their room is painted with like something like green, so that will give them balance and harmony and love. So depending upon this color, which is encoded in the most of the human beings, they provoke that kind of emotions and sensations. So you can use this color therapy for your special need kids to enhance their learning, or you can calm them down, or you can, for example, red color. It increases the physical energy and stamina and grounding. So what happens when you want to like channelize their ability to, learn faster or like read faster or something like that, you can always, or, if they're bouncing on, ball or trampoline, you can put some red colors to, have in front of their vision to increase their stamina if they need in that way. So the color therapy is very much interesting, how to like play around with it. If you can change the surrounding, you can definitely change what they are seeing. So the different color tinted glasses are very much important when they're focusing onto the task, or when they're trying to understand the planning and the steps towards doing it. For example, if they're given some task, a cognitive task or something, or a task of like, what is that, building block, thing, you know. So if they're playing with some kind of planning, requirement in planning and execution, you can actually think of giving them this such glasses, so they focus more and they can filter out any other background extra information. The music therapy is excellent in kids. There are like brain signals going on in our body. I think there is a next slide, but yeah, I'll talk about these brain waves. So there are different types of the EEG. Yeah, EEG. What is that? Yeah, EEG has shown, EEG studies have shown that lot of brain activities are going on when you are in different stages of arousal. So for example, you know, if you're awake, normal awake and alert brain activity, you can have this beta kind of frequency. So the waves are like this. So, I mean, the brain is going through a lot of these wave formations, the activity, the neuronal activity, how they are actually, it's like a neuronal circuit, you know, it's like a circuit, electric circuit in your own house. And sometimes it can be short circuit, you know, if there's some accident happens. So sometimes it's like slowly electrical flow is happening. So this kind of waves makes you understand what exactly your brain status is. So there are like different waves are happening. And for example, alpha, physically and mentally relax when you are, that time you have an alpha wave. So that kind of music, or that can be intonation, or the sound phonation can be created with the music, that alpha music. If you read, you can get a lot of information out there on the internet, that how to create this alpha music, or what are the alpha waves. And you know, so you can to calm the kids down, you can use this kind of music or the sounds to, you know, let them focus more. So auditory sensation, what you hear is yeah, you can listen to the music and then the musical instrument. You can, when they're playing, you know, they are planning an execution happening, that this amount of force I have to require to strung on the drum, so that, you know, that this kind of sound is going to be produced. If I'm using too much of force, then this kind of sound is going to be produced. So this kind of experiences make them learn the motor movement pattern and grasping and, you know, gross motor patterns. Then the sound machines, there are tick 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 sounds, or like beautiful wind chime or something. So this kind of special sound, when they're learning something, the encoding happens, and each time the sound is played, they are learning or focusing better. Okay, noise cancellation headphones can be given to them if they're like overactive or hyper responsive. Okay, then let's talk about the textures and the emotions. So what they feel, you know, what exactly they are going to touch the surrounding, what that kind of texture can provoke some kind of emotions. The studies have already proven this, that when they feel okay, when they are touching something smooth, it is going to trigger the happy kind of experience. So it's kind of encoding some preliminary or predetermined encoding has already happened in most of the brain. So in human brain. So that's why the study have proven that most of the human beings are experiencing that. Then when they're touching something smooth and like squishy or silky, they have that kind of good sensory experience. So they feel happy, or they remember something which is a happy moment or something. So, and then fear can be generated by the bristly or coarse touch, or, you know, disgust can be you know, provoked by something which is rough and bumpy. So all those different textures can provoke different kind of emotions in the kids as well, because their brain is still getting encoded. So yes, you have to make sure that what kind of, blankets you give them, or what kind of pillowcases you give them, or what kind of clothes they are wearing will all matter to have a better learning. If they are very hyperactive, you can put them into the weighted jacket to calm their systems down, because the weight and the system will receive a lot of muscle work, or the receptors in the muscles will get activated to give you that grounding feeling. Okay. I have a mentor in India, and she always talks about that there are like three main systems in our body, right? The tactile system, the proprioceptive system, and the vestibular system. So tactile system is what you touch and, over the skin. That is a tactile system. And the vestibular system is how you move. It's a movement. So tactile system is touch. That means it's very motherly. Okay. So that kind of experience is very, very important, which will make you feel grounded, which will calm you down. Vestibular system is a movement system which will give you freedom. You can jump and you can roar high. You can soar high, and that's all is fatherly. So that will give you more of freedom and more of movement and all those things. So it's fatherly system. And to balance that out, you need a proprioceptive system, that is the hold and the pressure is required. That kind of sensation is required to calm you down. So even when you have a physio ball or something, you just roll over the hyperactive kid with little bit of pressure, it will calm them down. And the kind of cuddle or a good hug will calm them down, because obviously the kind of pressure they're getting is very much to balance out these extreme systems, the motherly and the fatherly. Oromotor stimulus. Yes, so when they have a drooling issue, or they're chewing issue, or they're like biting on things quite a lot, you can obviously think about giving them oromotor, like the whole facial and around the jaw and the lips. You can give them special kind of massage or exercises, to even to make some phonations and to have a good kind of speech development. So, but again, I will always tell you that professional help is required to understand what is exactly right for them. Okay. Then the olfactory system. So olfactory avoiding behavior is, olfaction is a smell. So it becomes, they particularly avoid some kind of smells, and they does not like to be hugged or close to the people, because, they can smell the different kind of odor, and their brain is encoded with some kind of smell to some kind of emotions. Again, the same system as it goes, what I have explained you about the textures. So that one type of smell can trigger off different kinds of emotions. So they are so much greatly associated with it. Sometimes it's hard to get over it. So yes, you have to make sure that what kind of right smell or you provide them. No smell is a good thing for them to learning or to focus better, or some kind of calming smell, or vanilla or something, which can provoke a good good experience and sensation, so that they can channelize their energy more. So olfactory activities are like scented play-dohs and scent matching. So you have to like ask them to close their eyes and remember what was the feeling like when they smell something. So when you can register that, and then you can use that the same kind of sensory experiences in their day-to-day activities, or to learn them better. So there are a lot of movement patterns you can give at the home. You can actually install different kinds of swing if they are, motion seekers or something, to channelize their energy. It's not that you're providing them too much and they're bumping around, but that slow kind of like rhythmic movement can let them calm down or focus their energy, and at the same time you can give them some tasks to do it, like building blocks or some kind of games to play, so that they are learning at the same time when they are experiencing the swing in the right modulated manner. So you're going to supervise. The adds-on are like weighted blankets and weight cuffs. Weight cuffs with the different weights, so that it gives you grounding. It gives your kids grounding, and focus them better and just calm their system down. And then again, that inflatable water pools can help them to play with the water, and some toys in the water. The buoyancy of the water can give them the kind of pressure around, or the muscle activity and the strength. So the central nervous system grows in that kind of pyramid. So the basic is what they sense from the environment. Then the sensory motor, what they sense, and what they execute, as in like how much movement they are doing, how they're moving in the surrounding, how they're navigating through the surrounding, what different kinds of sensations. The perception is what they're processing in their heads, so that the coding happens in each individual kids differently. That this kind of sensation I like, this kind of sensation I don't like, and there is always a balance between that. So whatever they're perceiving, it's going to be in their memory. And the cognition, so you need to understand the perception level is very hard to understand. So I always believe that professional help is required to have a fine detailing about how much is too much and how much is too less. And then the cognition and the intellect happens only when they're learning out of, doing all the background maths. This is the background work. The whole pyramid system, the top level is academic learning or academic achievement or whatever task achievement. It can be swimming, it can be playing violin, or it can be just, being a great athlete or something. If you want to achieve any kind of goal or any kind of, if you're a mathematician, but below that, a lot of background work is happening in your brain, in your system, in your environment. So you have to like modulate and reciprocate all of that. So you have to understand with the special need kids that the professionals as a physiotherapist or occupational therapist can help you to make you understand that what is right for the kid. So I always believe that as a parent, your role is to understand that, yes, they need something extra, and understand that, yes, I can go to professional and seek help so that, that can be streamlined. You might be knowing better. There is a lot of information happening on the internet. I was like, seriously, yesterday night was like a great learning experience for myself also. So I read so much of new stuff, and I thank to all the occupational therapists out there that are doing great job in finding out that what else can be provided to enhance their learning pattern of the special kids. As a physiotherapist, we know better about the muscle strength and grips, and we have different kinds of activities like TheraBand activities and, proprioception activities and balance board activities, so that they can focus their energy in the right direction. And we understand as a professional that how their brain processing works to achieve some kind of task, and how to split that out or how to sequence that. So yes, we can make you feel independent only when we are giving you right advice, and that can be followed as when kids are growing in the society. So you can be the missing link, and you are the fine tuner. That's kind of a modulation button, So that switch is very, very important. You are the middle point between this your kid who is growing with interacting with the whole environment. So you can be as a shield, as well as you can be as a great channel to enhance the learning experiences in them. So I feel that you should remember what I have talked about. So I think you should, can you feel that my thank you, just when you feel that thank you from all the different channels, what I'm getting the information that, special kids are like gifted ones. They have like extra sensation which we don't have. So their sensation is completely different than what we feel. So we have to just understand and make them free enough to navigate the society. So we can definitely help them as a professional and as a neurophysiotherapist. I welcome you all to have your special kids, seek a professional help, or to just play with us to understand that is there anything lacking and is there anything else can be provided. And yes, I will see you in InStep Physical Therapy.